I don't think so. He sent me a text here. Let me see if I have.
I think it was 2,500.
So then in the end, this really didn't end up being as big a primary as was expected. Is that correct?
I think we still are close to the record, but we were also hoping for 30-some thousand, which would have destroyed the record. But there's a lot of people that just didn't simply mail their ballots back, which is crazy, but is what it is.
Well, you needed a stamp. Most of us don't have stamps anymore.
Well, and that's right.
There was one story, a person mailed in a letter complaining that they had to mail in the ballot because they couldn't afford the stamp. So they mailed a letter in to complain about how they didn't have money for a stamp. That's an actual thing.
Well, with the return address and the addressee being the Cass County Courthouse, if you put it in the mail without a stamp, it's still going to end up at the courthouse. Postage due.
It was actually a larger envelope, and it was postmarked. It's just the way it is sometimes.
Well, and it's 2 o'clock, 2:01. We'll call to order the rotational group B. And good afternoon, everyone. And today, why don't we start with Dr. Baird?
Oh, thank you. Thank you very much. I did send around a report. I like to just print something up to keep myself going and to give you any information that you might want. I looked briefly at our statistics, and they're about the same as they've been previous years. We continue to be very busy, a number of homicides, suicides, and things that keep the investigators going. Our budget is looking fine. I'll be looking closer at it, especially the 2021 projections as we get into budgeting season now, but we're doing fine with expenses and income at this point. Our staff really are, I feel, the most important part of our office. They do all the hard work and do all the investigations and deal with a number of people in our day-to-day work. We did finally, we're doing everything by distance, but we did have an in-person meeting last week, which was nice to see everybody again and to touch base with things and hear complaints. We talked about a number of items in the office. Christy Ross is our chief deputy. Darren Haberland is our deputy. We have part-time investigator Tammy Link, who has a lot of law enforcement experience. And Natalie Basta is one of our investigators. The drivers, we have a bit of a turnover. We use the drivers primarily for transporting from here to Grand Forks for autopsy. Currently, we have 2 of them. One may be going on to graduate school and we'll get some turnover, but we're always looking for new drivers. It's a very part-time job, not paid that much, but it's nice to have good, reliable drivers, and our investigators do drive when needed. Just lumped together a bunch of things for the office and procedures, equipment. We've been almost 5 years. It'll be coming up, I think, this fall, 5 years in our facility. We're using our cooler quite a lot and our examination room. We're holding some more bodies. We have a good arrangement with funeral homes, and they've been responding well to us. We're working constantly on professional procedures. We've adapted the procedure of really bringing people back to our examination room after we go to the scene, and it's much easier to get a good examination in a well-lit room and to draw toxicology and that sort of thing, which previously we'd done at the scene when we could, and this has been a very nice procedure. We use MDI log, which is a computer database. We pretty much originated it in this state. UND pathologists use it also now, and we can communicate back and forth very well in that, and it stores our information very well. We've done a lot of fingerprinting classes, photography, and so on. We have worked out with Sanford to have remote access to their medical records for the cases that we need. And that's made a big difference on access and amount of paper that we have to go through and some of those things. With Sanford, Essentia, we still can't access their medical records directly, but they respond quite quickly to email. We're using our vehicles a lot. We have two vans, an express van and a full van. We go to scenes with them. We've been using the larger van for removals and some transports to Grand Forks. Having our staff do a lot of that, and the funeral homes are on board with it and very good about it. And using our staff has saved a lot of extra money that we might pay for library service and some of those things. So it also keeps our staff involved directly with the case. So it's been good. We do have an agreement with FM Ambulance to be our library service and to remove bodies from a scene when needed. And part of it is that their primary commitment is to people who need immediate care, and that slows down a bit their response time to those who have died. But I think we're working that out quite well, and we meet with them regularly. We're busy with our community. Christy's actually going to teach at the Fargo Police Academy tomorrow, and we do a lot of things with law enforcement. She's active in the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention, is on one of the national boards for ABMDI. We meet regularly, quarterly pretty much, with the hospitals, have other committees that we work with. And then some of our current issues, FM Ambulance was very good to recently donate a power gurney to us. We've been using a mechanical gurney for removals, and it's more work and it's harder to lift and more chance of dropping things, and it's a difficult procedure, and the power gurney is going to be wonderful. FM uses the best equipment they can for their active and cases, but when they have aged out, they agreed to give us one of their power gurneys. We've had to buy a new battery and charger for it, but it'll make a great difference for us. Dr. Sens in Grand Forks is writing a grant to the National Institute of Justice, a rather large grant on education, training, and organization of forensic systems. And I wrote a letter of support for her. I'm not sure if she'll get that grant or not, but it's a very ambitious project, and we would be involved and help with some of that. We will be doing a forensic rotation in October of 2 weeks for one of the third-year family medicine residents at Sanford, just to get some exposure to forensic medicine, which becomes a requirement a lot of times when family physicians go out to small areas. And then we're still dealing with a cross-border issue. We've dealt with this a number of years. Most of the counties we seem to be doing quite well. They come in from another county. We're a referral center, and our hospitals get a number of deaths from outlying areas. When they die here, they're our case, and we assume responsibility and investigate it. That's worked quite well with all the counties. Clay County has been a little more difficult to work with. They have a different approach than we do. We see medical examination and medical determination of death as separate from criminal investigation, which law enforcement is excellent at. And the way that Clay County is set up, they merge the two of them a lot of times, and we get some pushback on what we do, and we're trying to work with them more. So that's all I've got. I wanted to rattle off all those things, but please let me know if you have other questions. I can't hear you.
Commissioner Pollock, are you muted?
Okay, let's start again.
Sorry about that.
How has the pandemic and the COVID task force affected you and your office?
For us, it's been good. I mean, we've been trying to observe as much as we can, protecting our staff and isolating ourselves. And when we go to a scene, to wear masks and gloves and be alert as to any exposure to COVID. When someone dies of COVID-19 and that's the only cause of death, it's not a coroner case, which gets to be somewhat confusing sometimes for some people. But if there are other things involved and COVID is also involved, then we would investigate it. But if someone just goes to the hospital, has COVID and dies, it's not our investigation really. It's just a natural death, an unfortunate infectious disease death, but not a coroner case as such. And the pathologists are also being very cautious with it when we send a case up to them for autopsy. If necessary, police can come and watch the autopsy, but they try to limit the exposure and not to, when they're opening a body and having aerosolized blood and so on, they use a lot of personal protective equipment and don't want to expose other people. But in general, I think we're doing extremely well with it.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Baird. Any further questions from any of the other participants for Dr. Baird? Okay, well, thank you, Doctor.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Let's move on to Rita Eusitis from the Extension Department. Hi, Rita.
Hi, thank you. So I'm going to try to share something here. So am I sharing this?
Yes, you are.
So I
Yes.
did this update in April that I sent to the commissioners and representatives and senators. And what I really want to say is, even though we were all working remotely, the amount of work that we did and the contacts we made were absolutely amazing and continue to be amazing. Our urban agent and our FMP and FNF agents worked a lot with the food insecurity, since there was a big demand in food security. And some of these resources were made in conjunction with Minnesota Extension as well, because they're in Clay County, to make it easier for people to be able to find food or free lunches. So it was easy in one place. So that was really neat. This is something we probably never would have done, but with all the sack lunches that the schools in Fargo and Central Cass were giving out, we placed 33,000 healthy meal, family mealtime, like little note cards in there to like motivation things to keep them in the nutrition and making sure they were still having parental support. West Fargo wouldn't allow us in, so we tried to do that school, but we weren't able to get in. And in the amount of Microsoft meetings and Zoom meetings and Google Classrooms that we have participated or taught on, if you can see those numbers over there, this is just for April. That's pretty amazing for a number of staff. As of April, we have developed 14 YouTube videos, and we're still developing videos for educational programs. We had 54 live and Facebook posts. We've done some TV shows. I just did Valley, North Dakota Today, and they said they had a household hit of 12,000 or 12,000 hits that day. We've had a lot of Facebook views, and then just our phone calls, our emails, our news columns, TV. And so that's in April. So I just want to show you that we were very successful by working remotely, and we continue to be very successful working remotely. And I'm going to just talk about some of the things that we are doing right now. Pesticide was one of our biggest issues through this whole program to decide how to get those pesticide tests done. I'm going to try to come back to my camera if I figure out how to do that. Just back.
There you are. Well,
So
we don't see you.
Yeah,
There
did
you
you
are,
see-
okay.
Yeah, come back to my camera. So pesticide testing was a big issue since, you know, our applicators need their license, and of course we couldn't have any face-to-face meetings. We got through it pretty well. We're still testing. We're doing face-to-face tests right now. We're almost caught up to what our demand is. We figured this week we'll be caught up on that, and so that's good. Don Kinsler, our horticulturalist, reported this morning, so far in June, he's had 200 phone calls about horticulture. And that was what we were averaging probably a quarter before a year ago. So just this month, 200 of those. Our 4-H events, we've had to really do a lot of changing with all of that because there's no fair. So we're trying to figure out how to still keep the youth involved. So we're doing a lot of virtual events. We think that some of our restrictions from NDSU on face-to-face are going to be lifted by the end of the week. So we're going to try to do a virtual show for the rabbits and chickens. So what they do is they'll come in their car, and the chickens and rabbits won't ever really get out of the car or the trunk. We're calling it a trunk show. And so they'll be showed that way. We're still working on the livestock and horse to work that out. I'm actually running a consumer choice decision-making contest. I'm sending the classes to the kids. They're going to judge them, and then they're going to report back by a Zoom their reasons, their oral reasons to me. Amazing we can do, right? I'm still teaching my diabetes prevention class Monday nights by a Zoom. We're doing a cooking school virtually this summer. So that's what some of the YouTube videos we're making. We will prepare the kits of food that the kids or ingredients the kids need. They'll come and pick it up. They will go on the videos that we're producing, make the recipe, send a picture of the recipe back to us. And once they complete the recipes and show us they did it, we have a really neat package at the end with measuring cups and measuring spoons and cutting boards and cookbooks and a little incentive gift after they complete that. Our Parent Resource Center has been doing educational classes every Monday night for parents, and we've actually had great attendance on that. We usually have that, and half the people don't show up, but now they're attending. So maybe it's because they're at home and they don't have to get childcare and this easy access. Our urban agent they're planting 20 trees in a community gardens orchard on Thursday afternoon. So we're establishing some orchards that way. And I think that's all I have. All I want to say is we have worked very different. We've learned very fast. And actually our numbers are up higher than I think they were last year. Maybe that's because the staff have all been in for a year also, in place of, 6 months. And we've been a lot more productive and had a lot better outreach for all of our meetings. We're looking for direction from NDSU when we can lift some more of our face-to-face interactions. Right now it's 10 people or less, but we feel that by the end of the week, they're going to lift those interactions somewhat. They said for most of the counties except Cass, they're kind of keeping us under the gun a little bit because of all high numbers. And what they're being very careful for is they don't want to have an outbreak and it comes back that it was a 4-H event or a class, and so they don't want us to be the one responsible party for that. But anyway, working remotely has been working well. Next week, support staff will be back in full time. Agents are going in and out, and we have been the whole time. Support staff, we've always kind of had somebody in the office every day, it seems like. And so we're gearing up to all be back in by middle of July probably, to be all of us back working from the office. So I think Terry's on. I need to thank Terry for getting us all set up remotely and making this work for us.
Okay, thank you, Rita. Are there questions for her?
Commissioner Pollock was even on our advisory council Zoom meeting with us, so he saw that in action as well.
Of course. All right, and if you come up with some questions, both Rita and Dr. Baird are still on, so we can.
Commissioner Pollock?
Yes, go ahead.
This is Robert, and I won't take much time. I know we've got a number of other departments to jump through, but I would just want to take this opportunity for commissioners who don't get a chance to be part of those department head meetings that we were having at first every day and then back to twice a week and then once a week. I think Dr. Baird's rundown of activities and Rita's rundown of activities are just a really good example of what we've seen over the last couple of months of how creative a number of departments have become in trying to and continuing to do their job functions and get the necessary work done under some very different circumstances. And I think I just have been very impressed with the creativity and the effort and the way departments have really been imaginative to continue to serve our community through this very, very different time.
All right, thank you, Robert. Next up, we'd like to hear from Jim Prokniak, the emergency manager. Jim, go ahead.
Thank you, Commissioner. Hopefully you can see the screen. I'm glad that Robert commended Rita and Dr. Baird because their presentations were phenomenal. And as you will see, mine is pretty bland and very brief. But because we've been dealing with, I think, what everybody is well aware of in our department when it comes to the three events, especially over the last quarter, namely flood, COVID, and of course the upset community protesters. So a couple of things that I wanted to touch on, which has been ongoing and is actually to the point where we see light at the end of the tunnel, is the Everbridge emergency notification system, which, as I've reported in the past, is going to take the place of the Code Red notification system. Currently, several different components that we've had to check the box or in the process of checking the box. Number one, Cass and Clay entries, Clay County entries are complete or near complete, which include the cities, the major cities, the volunteer departments within those counties and jurisdictions, specialty response teams, and of course the employees. So you can imagine the database that is being built out. You could think of that number one as the internal notification system. So for example, if there would be in the future, once we launch this thing, another protest, we could reach out to employees, things like that, even if they are off campus, and make sure that we get a message to them for their safety. By the way, some agencies actually did do that over the protests that already had their information and their employees entered. So behind the scenes, Everbridge is working. We just haven't flipped the switch to the public component, which I'll talk about here shortly. We are waiting for approval for an actual government account or a website, a .gov account. This will enable people to simply go to a neutral site, if you want to think of it that way, to enter their information and notification information. So that'll work out pretty easy for them. You actually have to apply for this, and we've gone through it once. We're actually denied the first time, and we're going through it a second time. I think it was a communication issue. They were a little confused when they reviewed the application, because it also involved Cass and Clay counties, two different states. Once that gets all spelled out, I don't think it's going to be an issue of whether we get approval. It's just pending approval. With the approval, we can then apply that website address to the educational materials that are being produced to assist the general public when it comes to the enrollment. Simple stuff like what we post on our websites, what we share with communities to post on their website. For example, Horace or City of Harwood, what have you. Not to mention various handouts when we do presentations or safety meetings, things like that. They'll have that information so they can easily go ahead and register. There'll be a large press briefing, which will involve the agency heads, most of them that had the RRDC governing board. So department response agency heads from Cass and Clay County, along with coordination with the PIOs. I believe Kaitlyn was also involved or will be invited, and so there'll be information sharing going out to the public, along with the press briefing. I mean, we're not just going to stop there. We'll make sure that we're trying to get in front of radio stations, do interviews through the different media platforms, to include TV, radio, etc. Lastly, the Cast Clay Alerts brand, since this is going to be our own, it's powered by Everbridge, but this will actually be our own. We don't call it Code Red. We own all the information. If you can bear with me, I'm going to try something kind of fancy here. And hopefully you can see that. That's what it's going to look like from now on. Cast Clay Alerts, a unique symbol, and it'll give people kind of a lasting memory or something to resort to, as far as, oh yes, that's how we get notified, that's how we apply, or when we see that logo, that's what it's about. So it certainly helps. We use that branding not only in social media sites, but we'll use it for any kind of paper trail, everything tied into Cast Clay Alerts. So works out pretty nice. Moving on to EMPG, or the Emergency Management Performance Grant. And I can't just talk about that without talking about the emergency management budget. The grant application process is open. We fully expect the same or similar funding as last year, so not necessarily a decrease. That's a good thing. And so we'll be forging ahead. We have to get that in by the end of the month. As far as the budget requests, the Emergency Management Department will not be making any change other than anything that's compensation related. So unless we're instructed otherwise, I think we're still waiting for some final information from the finance office. But other than that, certainly want to do our part. We realize what local governments as well as many entities are going through. And last but not least, what I wanted to share and make sure that I conveyed to the commission, last week I had some communication with North Dakota Department of Emergency Services, and then a follow-up call with Aaron Burst of the Association of Counties. You all may be familiar with that name. He's kind of their attorney that represents our Association of Counties here in North Dakota. What prompted the conversation between those two entities, anytime we request resources as a county, commissioners will recall, we have to have a memorandum of understanding if we move to a disaster declaration, and then ultimately if that gets approved at the state level and then the federal level. And then when FEMA comes in to determine eligible costs that we can claim, they always want to know if we borrowed, whether that be human resource and or supplies, what have you, or assets from other areas. And if we did, do we have a memorandum of understanding? Well, what presented itself over the riot situation, we had counties that you would not typically strike up a memorandum of understanding. The typical footprint for that is all of your neighboring counties, to include if they're over in Minnesota. So all the bordering counties, and then a handful of those counties which have similar assets that you would want. For example, a larger county like Burleigh County may have protest gear. A county like Grand Forks County may have airboats. So we have those on hand, and they're already documented. So that's not an issue. But when a county like Slope County says, you know what, we can send a couple of deputies your way, and we're asking for those resources, and we don't have a memorandum with them. And my contention to the state and suggestion to the Association of Counties was, why don't the Department of Emergency Services already provides the blueprint or template, if you will, for the memorandum. It covers human resource, it covers everything. They're the ones that gave it to the emergency managers to utilize and then have county commissions sign off on it. I suggested, why don't they send this to all 52 counties with a signature page and get them to sign off, all the counties represented in the state, and then we satisfy a FEMA requirement, and we're not jumping through this hoop in the 11th hour of a protest trying to get somebody's assets, and then worrying if FEMA will reimburse us for those when the final bill comes. It was the suggestion was actually received rather well. So we'll see where it goes from here. But in case you hear any discussion about that, I thought I'd better give you a heads up. It kind of unfolded late last week, and I'm taking the opportunity today to fill in the blanks there. So, Commissioner, that's all I have for now, and I'd gladly entertain any questions.
Commissioner Pollack, this is Commissioner Breitling. I have a question.
Go ahead.
My understanding is that, Jim, that you indicated that the public component of the Everbridge system has yet to be activated. Is that correct?
Commissioner Breitling, fellow commissioners, that is correct. The public component was delayed here because of everything else that's been going on, and we felt that we actually had a launch date in early June. We made a decision to not do that on the heels of protests. We felt that maybe there would be some sensitivities to that. So we're going to back that up to about the 4th of July. Everything else is pretty much falling in schedule for us with very few hiccups. Some things are ahead of schedule, some things not quite. But nonetheless, we felt it was a better decision to put that on hold for about another month, and then we'll get the public enrollment. By the way, if I may, recall that I had mentioned in the past, we still have an active system. Code Red is still functioning. Code Red will still be operational until late fall. So it's not like we are doing without a public notification system.
Would will there be an automatic switch over from Code Red to Everbridge if you're presently on Code Red now?
You still have to, Commissioner Breitling, fellow commissioners, you would still have to enter your information. So I'm getting a message. Can everybody hear me okay?
Yes.
I hear you. Yes.
Okay, I'm getting a display here. Sorry for the interruption. You would still have to enter that information. And so that will be the big push. But what we can leverage is the fact that we still have a functioning Code Red system, as I just briefly mentioned. And so we're going to utilize that Code Red system to notify people to sign on and get registered. We've also made an agreement with First Link. First Link is more than willing to assist us during the registration period. Which however long that may take, a month, 2 months, with their staff to gather that information. The process is very easy. It can be done in just a few short minutes. And so we'll kind of have the best of both worlds once we launch that, using Code Red to notify the general public and using First Link to capture that information for us.
Okay, are there any more questions for Jim today? Well, I have one question. As a former Highway Patrol officer, did you kind of wish you were out on the line during the riot?
Well, that's a very quick and resounding no.
Oh.
I did have the, well, I don't know if I would call it fortune to be working in the talk. I had been since 11 o'clock that particular day. I wouldn't want to wish upon anybody some of the calls and concerns, and quite frankly, almost blood-curdling calls from the police officers that were not only represented on the front line, but in their cars as they were being attacked. I don't know how to explain it any better than I just did. It was disheartening and hard for me after nearly 30 years of wearing a uniform, not to take it on a level that was personal. And so, no, Commissioner, there was no urge. I felt very comfortable where I was at and fortunate that I could try to help them in any way I could.
Okay, great. Thank you. We'd like to hear now from Chris Deary, Chris is the Veteran Service Officer. Chris, go ahead.
All right, thanks, Commissioners and Commissioner Pollock. We've been pretty busy in Veteran Services here. We're finally fully staffed, so we had 2 start last week, Monday, on admin and BSR, and we're in training right now and trying to get everyone up to speed to where we can be a fully functional office. The state has reached out to us, and I accepted all help from them. So Tuesdays and Thursdays, with social distancing, of course, and masks, we are seeing veterans. I'd just like to thank the Sheriff's Department out there too that are screening our individuals and calling me in case, some names and things don't line up. But we're definitely still seeing veterans. We've taken a lot more calls and a lot more, meetings over the internet, so to speak, and we're just trying our best to work with the state and the American Legion, the DAV. There's been a lot of shifting with the offices up there, as the regional office isn't even open right now to veterans, so we're getting the brunt of that. And but we're all working in concert to, again, the main thing is to help those veterans. We're working with Sioux Falls right now to try to get everyone, they're called PIV cards, so we can access the VA system, and then that state training would simmer down a little bit, and we would have access to that, and we could look further into veterans records and claims and things of that nature. A couple kudos to BSR and Susan Feeks, and Les had left, but we had a couple claims go our way after repeated, disagreements with the Veteran Administration, and they got awarded over $20,000 to 2 different individuals. So that's money coming into the county, and we're going to start looking into more outreach as things kind of open up, but that's still on the back burner for moving forward. So I do apologize, I don't have a nice presentation as the other 3 department heads, and I have a face for radio, so I haven't shaved my quarantine beard, so it's kind of one of those deals. But yeah, things are going great, and I'm really lucky that we have full staff, and we're just divvying out things right now, and things are going good though. Pretty proud of everyone here.
Okay, great. Anyone have questions for Chris? Anyone at all? Well, I have one question for you, Chris.
Sure.
Are you feeling settled?
Yeah, as much as I can be. Definitely. I'm not gonna lie, we had some bumps in the road, but I'm feeling a lot better, a lot more confident. Again, I have to give a lot of thanks to the state. Brian Waters has been great with his staff, and just allowing, a fluid motion of information to come into my office and get out to the rest of our VSRs has just been wonderful. So that relationship is stronger than I ever heard. So pretty proud of that.
All right, good. Well, that's great to know. Thank you, Chris.
Yep, thank you.
Our state's attorney, Birch Verdict, has joined us. Birch, how about a report?
Sure, thanks. So we just a little bit on COVID. During the last couple of months, we've had about half our staff here at any one time. So people would kind of do tag team. Their partner would be here on Monday, they would be here on Tuesday, back and forth like that. So about 20 or 50% of their time was in the office, 50% out. However, the court was spinning up, and we couldn't really make that work from home. So everybody came back to the office here toward the end of last week. except for one person who's got some specific health-related issues in their family, and they're continuing to work from home. But we're enforcing social distancing here in the office while that's going on as best we can. We are fully staffed. I am going to lose somebody at the end of the year. One of my longtime lawyers is going to be transitioning into becoming a district court judge. So we'll be filling his position. I'm mentioning that simply because it's canvassing board day to day. And dealing with ballots made me think of him. We'll have him till the end of the year, but and we'll look at replacing him as we get later into the year toward the fall. Our caseloads were up. The last time I checked on the general number was at the beginning part of May. I'd usually check it about every 2 months and do a calculation, but the first 2 months of the year, they were considerably higher than the prior year. Then it slowed down a little bit in the next 2 months, March and April, but we were still above where we were last year at that time. I'm not quite sure where we are now. We certainly added some riot cases to our load that we don't normally have. We have maybe about 15 to 20 of those cases going on. And we have a lot of pending homicide cases, I'm sorry to say. They didn't all just occur, but they're all in varying stages, so we're likely to have a lot of trials the remainder of this year and into next dealing with homicide cases unless for some reason they settle. But those cases don't tend to settle so frequently. So that's the general status of things in the state's attorney's office.
All right. We have questions for Birch. Does anyone have any questions for Birch? Okay, thank you very much, Birch. Well, one person who I think is on the call is Kaitlyn. Is Kaitlyn on the call?
Yeah, this is Kaitlyn.
Kaitlyn, okay, I'm sorry. I don't know that you're officially a part of Rotational Group B. You're not on my list, but since we have a couple of minutes, maybe you could just give an update on how things are going for you. We get your emails all the time, but at least I don't hear much from you.
Yeah, I guess I'm not really prepared, I guess. What would you like to hear about? Just general updates from my area or anything specific?
How's it going for you?
Going well. Obviously started during an interesting time with all this communication stuff, but so far so good though. It's been going well. Yeah, it's like I said, the start of it was a bit of a whirlwind and definitely had to go through all the learning curves of the ins and outs of Cass County government, but I feel like I'm in a pretty good spot right now. And I gotta thank everybody on this call for making that transition so much easier for me. I mean, you guys have been great to work with and made my life a lot easier, getting me information and getting me all the details that I need to know about. And then biggest thing has just been getting that out on social media lately. Really trying to build that audience the last couple months here, especially on Twitter. We had a decent Facebook following on our Cass County government page, but Twitter was kind of lacking in that department. So definitely trying to push that. Been making a lot of website updates, not a whole lot that's very noticeable at this point. Not a lot of stuff that's really public facing, but quite a bit of stuff on the backside just to kind of make that communication piece a lot smoother on the backside, sending out e-notifications to our e-notification subscribers, also trying to build that audience up quite a bit. We've actually had some pretty good luck in the last month or so of getting some more subscribers of that information. That's just all the media releases that I put out or job opportunities. People can subscribe to get notifications on that, as well as calendar events. So it's been a little bit of a challenge to get that audience built up, but so far so good there. I like what we're seeing in the numbers, at least initially here. But other than that, it's kind of all over the place, especially with obviously the COVID stuff, just amplifying messages from Fargo Cass Public Health and messages from the state, and just trying to make sure that everybody in our community is on the same page. There's been a little bit of struggles through the processes on that, just make sure that what we're saying from Cass County and what Fargo Cass Public Health is saying, and the city of Fargo and the city of West Fargo, just so we're not sending mixed signals to anybody in the public, and that we're not trying to confuse anybody with some of the positive cases numbers out there and stuff. So that's been a little bit of a challenge, but so far so good. The city of Fargo and Fargo Cass Public Health and West Fargo, everybody's been great to work with. So, and we have been meeting regularly every Friday morning as a PIO group with all that stuff, and just kind of hashing all that stuff out and making sure our messages are all aligning with each other. Just running down my list of things here. And I feel like I just spewed a bunch of words out, but I think I covered most of what I've been working on lately. But like I said, I got to thank everybody on this call again. It's been a good start so far, and you guys have made my life a lot easier. So if there's any questions that anybody has, just let me know and I can answer those right now. But that's about all I had to share right now.
Well, you're participating in Robert Wilson's accelerated training program, and I'm glad that it's going okay.
Going well so far. Can't complain.
Okay. Does anyone have anything else for us today?
Commissioner Pollock,
Yes.
Pollock, this is Robert. I was just going to jump in and say the value that Kaitlyn has brought to this office and organization is really extreme. And as he said, we brought him in at a pretty unusual time and asked him to go in a number of different directions, whether that was COVID-related press releases or coordinating messages between county, cities, and the Minnesota side, beefing up some of our internal communications to employees, and really kind of rounding out some of those communication pieces that are important, but not always top of mind when we're looking at getting agendas together and the different individual projects that we're looking at. So I think we will continue together to more fully define that role of the communications piece for Kaitlyn. But I know he is he's keeping himself busy, and he is working very much in a self-directed manner and really taking initiative on a number of things. If I ask him to look into this, or if he's helping Terry work on something from the sort of that quasi informational communication end, but also the technical end. So I really can't say enough how much I appreciate Kaitlyn's effort and appreciate having him on board.
What I hear you saying is that when you ask him to do something, he doesn't first look at the job description and say, nope, that's not in there.
Bingo. Yes, absolutely.
That's great. Anyone have anything else for us today? Have we missed anyone? Any important piece of information? Well, we'll see the commissioners back here at 3:30. This meeting is adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. See you.
Thank you.